Hi everyone, this is Lynn and today I want to showcase this card with you where I am using the Pixie Perfect and the 3 Room Studio Slimline Die newly released by Crafty Meraki. So first of all, I'm going to stamp out my images and I want one pixie to be on top of the mushroom. So I first stamped that pixie out onto some full stick post-it notes because I'm going to make a mask using that. And now I'm just stamping out my images before adding the mushroom. So when you are doing a one-layer card or you want to include 2 images in one, then it's important to first stamp out the image that you want to see completely, which is the image that is in front or on top, in this case, of the other one. Now, masking means fuzzy cutting, and not a lot of people like fuzzy cutting as far as I know. I don't like it either, but for masks, I really try my best. Now, when I have a situation like this here, I know that I don't need a completed mask. I just need to be able to mask off that area where there will be an overlap with the mushroom. So I just fussy cut everything out on the bottom of this stamp set because the legs and the wings can be in front of the mushroom. So once I've added it to the stamped out image, I can stamp out the mushroom as well. So I'm fiddling a bit with placement to get it sort of right. There is not a wrong, but the right in my opinion. So once I'm happy with placement, I can also stamp it out, and then when I remove the mask, it's like these 2 images were together all the time. So I'm stamping it a few times to get a crisp impression, and then I can start coloring. So I stamped these images on perfect coloring paper by Transotype using the Gina Design Amalgam ink because I am going to do some Copic coloring. I'm not doing anything fancy, I'm just doing the usual Copic coloring, starting with my darkest, then go to my mid-tone and then my lightest. And with this paper I prefer going over everything at least twice. So that's what I'm doing today. These 3 fairies will get some lovely colors. This one is green, the other one will be blue, and then I will also have an orange one. So I'm going for a really bright, joyful card. This one is also partially a shaker. I'm going to do 2 areas where there is some shaker material inside to move. I'm not going for a full-on shaker. What do I mean? You can really choose between making a shaker where your material is moving like crazy and it's really joyful. You can add a lot or just a little, or you can do what I did for this card, and it's more adding something extra to the sky. These 2 shakers, I don't need them to wiggle a lot, but I want to have a bit of movement. So I'm not making a really thick card. This one is quite thin. My shaker material is also flat. That also helps with keeping the card thin. But you just do whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you like more. But I like to switch it up. Some cards really are shaking like crazy, others are subtle shakers like this one. So I'm onto my 3rd dress. This one is the orange one, and I'm also doing the accessories with the same colors. I think this way you still have a bright and joyful card, but once I get into using a lot of colors, sometimes it can get a bit too much. So using the same colors for the accessories really helped me limit the craziness on my cards. So for the mushroom, I'm not going to do a red one, but more a pinkish red one, to sort of also match with the other ones. Those aren't really dark colors, so I didn't want this mushroom to be crazy dark. I am going to keep those dots white. I will use a bit of a cold gray today to add a bit of shadow, but then later on I will add some NUVO crystal drops, so you will not see that in the end. So it was not really needed. So as I said, doing a second layer, that's what I prefer on this paper definitely, to get the nice blend going on. And then onto the mushroom. I'm just keeping this coloring really simple for the mushroom, only using 2 colors, so you can definitely choose and decide how many markers you want to combine to get your blend. There are a lot of areas on this card where I'm only using 3, but here 2 was just enough. It's a smaller surface, so I didn't need to add a lot of colors. But then, for example, for the hair, I will definitely add a few layers on some of these pixies. So almost done with the mushroom. I decided to keep it really simple. Also the door is matching with the upper half of the mushroom, just to keep it all together. And then the pixies will all get the same skin tone. It's a lighter one than I normally use, but I recently got the E00 marker. I already had it, but it was dried out. So, well, the tip was ruined as well, so a refill wasn't doing the job. So I had to buy a new one, and I did. So I'm trying out one of those skin tones that some people are suggesting, which is a really pale skin tone today. And it worked out, but if I check the other cards that I make, I prefer using a slightly darker skin tone. I don't know why. Maybe it just stands out more, but this one is really pale, but it goes. If you want to make cards with a lot of skin tones, then definitely this is one that you can use over that card as well. So I'm just using E11, E01 and E00, and I'm going over it until I'm happy with the blend. But as you can see, it's really soft. And since I'm doing all the pixies in the same skin tone, I'm only showing you this one, and then I will skip the coloring for those 2 others so that I can start with the hairs. For today I try to do 3 different hair colors. I will do blonde, brown, and then I'm also trying out a reddish brown hair color. So she's going to be blonde, and hair is something tricky. There is not really a right or wrong, but here this one, she has curls, and I just thought that I would try to make her hair curly as well, which is something that I don't do often, so definitely there are better guides and better instruction videos for this. But I just wanted to try something different to just doing the flicking. So I tried to do some sort of curls by bending my flicking, and really going back and forth between all the colors. So for this hair I am using 4 colors, and then I will go to the boy. There I'm using some browns. It's a really soft but still a darker brown color. And here I am, however, imprinting myself to be guided there where his hair is sort of going to the left and to the right, and then I'm flicking from there towards the rest of the hair. And that's how I'm building up his hair. And my marker is quite a bit in the way while I am flicking, just because when you hold your marker straight, then you can really use the tip of your marker, which is sometimes really handy. And for hair, to get those sort of hair locks going on, I think that really helps. So that's why a lot of the coloring is covered up by the marker itself. And then now onto the reddish brown color. For this one, here I am using the E18, E15 and E33. And at the top of her hair, I'm trying to do those curls again, but then on the other areas, I'm just doing the flicking. And this one actually was the hardest one, I think, because it's sort of a mix of both styles. Yeah, that was a bit challenging for me, but I like how this card ended up, although the hair was a bit of a struggle for me. But really go back and forth. If you want to have those stripes on the hair, then hold your Copic marker as straight as possible. That really helps. If you don't want that, then you shouldn't be bothered by it. You just do whatever you're doing, whatever you feel comfortable with. That's the way you should go. As long as you are having fun, that's perfectly fine. So almost done with this hair, and then I still need to do the wings as well as those flowers. And I had contemplated quite a while before I did the flowers, because I just didn't know which color I was going to use. And in the end I decided to use the same colors as on the dress each time, but then still vary in color so that it wasn't going over into the band where the flower is on. And then for the wings, as you can see here, I'm using one of my favorite combinations. I'm using the G000 and G00. And I'm just flicking it and then sort of blending it out in between each other. And I don't mind if it ends up in white. In my opinion, wings you don't need to cover completely. And then the flowers, of course. Also, something that I really like about the images by Crafty Meraki is the fact that you can give those eyes a color. And in this case, I did the color of the mid-tone from each dress that they are wearing. And I just think it's a really cute detail. So those are the images. I fussy cut them out, and now I'm continuing with the background. So for the background, I actually just wanted to have a grassy border as well as a lot of sky. So I am using Twisted Citron and Mowed lawn to create some sort of grass, and then right above it I will start with the blue sky. I will not blend it out into each other because grass and sky is sort of separate from each other. And then with the sky I'm doing gradient using Tumbled glass as well as Mermaid Lagoon. So as you can see here, I'm just going back and forth between the two colors, and I will also do that there where I am going from the Tumbled glass into the Mermaid Lagoon. So something that's handy to have on the side is some post-it notes. Whenever you're blending, you can sometimes put your fingers into your blended area and then you can leave a print on there, which is not ideal. So I have some post-it notes in my drawer next to me, and whenever I'm like this, blending a whole scene, I really like to add it just underneath my fingers where I'm holding the cardstock. Also handy to know is that this background, this Room Studio Slimline Die, it cuts out those windows, but when I am blending I prefer keeping them in place, so I just add some purple tape on the back to keep them as they are, and then later on when I'm ready, the ink blending is done, splattering is done, then I remove the purple tape. And I know that the transition will be perfect between the windows as well as the frame. So here I'm working on the transition, and then I decided to lay everything out. So the boy wasn't really working, but then later on I figured something out for that. I was just deciding where I was going to place the sentiment. So here I'm just holding the Pixie Perfect paper to see if it would work with the boy just peeking in, and I just thought that it was so lovely. So now I'm deciding on the sentiment. Something that I also wanted to do was to add some splatters. Now if I would redo this card, I would maybe not start blending on the Perfect Coloring paper. Now the idea of these splatters was I wanted to have some blue splatters, but the Perfect Coloring paper really cannot handle water. They are not friendly towards each other, so I decided that I wanted to mix my blue with some gouache, and doing that would allow me to have a thicker consistency for my splatters so that it wouldn't really affect the paper. Now I did this and it didn't ruin the paper, so the idea was good, the execution a bit less. Well, I had some huge splatters over there, and then it took like way too long to dry. So if you have other papers, I would for example use Select More Bristol Smooth that can handle water. Just do the same ink blending and then splatter just distress inks as I always do. But well, it worked out as well. The area where the splatters are too big I will cover up with one of the pixies, so that's not an issue either. And here I am inlaying those windows. So I have temporarily adhered the frame. And now I'm just inlaying the rest. I can peel off the frame, and now I'm going to add some acetate just behind those two upper windows. You can also, if you want, turn this die around and then have the two closest windows towards each other on the top. That's however you prefer, but in my idea it was like this. But it definitely gives you a lot of options. So I'm adding Scotch 3M foam tape here to create my shaker. I'm only doing one layer. If you have thick shaker material or you want a really good shaker with a lot of movements, definitely double up your foam tape. You can also buy really thick foam tape, but if you don't have that like I do, I just double up the foam tape. But in this case it was just to have some interest in my background, so it can shake, but also I didn't add a lot. It doesn't shake a lot, it's just a nice detail in the back. And I used the mix from Little Things from Lucy's Cards. It's the Wildemess, and I just thought that it matched good with the green and the blue that I used on the background. So I'm now adding all the pixies. And for the upper ones, I'm just using liquid glue. There is adhesive and acetate just flat, so you can easily just use liquid glue. And then for this bottom one, I'm using a combination of the foam tape as well as liquid glue, because the lowest window doesn't have acetate, so it's deeper than the frame of this panel. So now that they are on there, I'm going to, well, cut off his legs. Yeah. So having done that, it's time to add a few more sequins. I really like it when the sequins return in the rest of the background, especially when I have an area where I didn't make a shaker and there was potential for a shaker. This way it also matches with the shaker part of the card. So that's what I'm doing here, just fiddling around a bit with the sequins that I want to use, because there is a lot of choice in this mix. And once I'm happy, I'm adding it with some liquid glue, and I'm using my embellishment wand to get everything in place. And then I wanted to add some more details. So as I said a bit previously, I am going to add some crystal drops, simply white, to the mushroom. So the little shadowing that I did there isn't really showing anymore. But I really like the effect of the simply white crystal drops, because now it's a bit glossy and it's lifted, so that's a bit cuter. And then I also took like a tiny needle to spread it around, because of course it's not that easy with like the tip that you have to applicate it also with the fingers and stuff. So I just took my time and spread it around using this tiny needle. And once that's on there, I thought that it was still not enough, so I also took some Stickles Stardust, and I'm adding that on top of all the wings that you can see on this card. And I will show it up close when it was all added. But definitely when it dries, it's such a nice detail. It also dries really flat. So that's also handy if you had to go in specific places that were a bit harder and it's really lifted, or you added a lot in bulk there. It will dry flat and it's just wonderful. So this one is a Stardust. I really like this one. Also the diamond, and I have one other one that I really like, but I cannot recall the name. But really neutral ones. I just need to shimmer, I don't need any color. And then once that's added, this card is finished. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that I could inspire you to create something. This card was so much fun to make, and these pixies are just adorable. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will be back soon with some new inspiration. After this, there are a few close-ups. I hope you like it. Bye!